The sky above the alien planet was filled with swirling clouds of orange and silver. Lightning danced far in the distance, but the storm had already passed over the valley. Smoke rose from the wreckage of a small human spaceship, now half buried in the tall grass and strange, blue-leafed trees. Inside the broken ship, Darren Cole groaned and opened his eyes. His head was bleeding, and his leg hurt badly. The controls were dead. The power systems had failed just before entering the planet's atmosphere. He had no choice but to crash. But somehow he had survived. Darren dragged himself out of the wreck. He took a deep breath. The air was clean and breathable. That was good. He looked around. Tall trees twisted in strange shapes. Glowing plants pulsed softly in the shadows, and odd insect-like creatures buzzed in the air. He was completely alone. Or so he thought. From the shadows between the trees, someone was watching him. Her name was Lurian. She had been gathering water from a nearby spring when she saw fire fall from the sky. At first, she thought it was a weapon. The elders had warned her. If anything from the sky ever comes again, hide or destroy it. But her curiosity was stronger than her fear. She crept closer through the underbrush. The creature she saw crawl out of the metal wreck looked strange. It had no scales. Its body was covered in odd, soft clothing. It limped, clearly wounded, and kept holding a small device that blinked and buzzed softly in his hand. She narrowed her pale violet eyes. A human, just like in the old warnings. Still, he didn't look dangerous. Not yet. When Darren reached the edge of the wreck and sat down on a rock, Lurian stepped into view. She didn't speak at first. She just stood there, her slim body straight, long white hair falling past her shoulders. Her skin was pale blue with soft purple patterns that shimmered faintly under the light. Her large eyes didn't blink. Darren's heart jumped. He raised both hands slowly. "I don't want any trouble," he said calmly. To his surprise, she spoke back in broken galactic common. Did you come to eat me?" Darren blinked. "What?" She tilted her head. Her expression stayed serious. "You are human. Stories say humans eat what they find." Darren almost laughed, but the pain in his leg stopped him. He shook his head. "No, I just crashed. I don't even know where I am." Lurian watched him closely. His words didn't match what she'd been taught. The humans from the old stories were monsters. Dangerous, wild, full of destruction. But this one looked more hurt than harmful. "You are not here to take?" she asked again. Darren sighed and pointed back to the broken ship. "Look at that. I couldn't take anything if I tried. I'm just trying to stay alive." There was a long silence. Then Lurian walked a few steps closer. She didn't lower her guard, but her voice was calmer now. "This is not your world," she said. "I know," Darren replied. "I didn't mean to come here. My ship broke. I crashed. That's all." She looked down at his injured leg. "You are hurt." "Yeah. I don't know. Bandages. Water. Maybe food." Lurian hesitated. She had never helped an outsider before. But something about this man, his voice, his eyes, made her believe he was telling the truth. She finally nodded. "Follow me. But if you lie—" "I won't," he said, and smiled weakly. "Thank you." Lurian turned and began walking through the trees. Darren followed, limping and leaning on a stick he had picked up. He had no idea where she was taking him or what kind of danger lay ahead. But for the first time since the crash, he didn't feel completely alone. And as for Lurian, she still didn't trust the human. But deep down, a small part of her wanted to know more. If the old stories were wrong, if this man was not a monster, then what else had they been wrong about? Lurian walked ahead, moving gracefully through the strange forest. Her feet made no sound on the soft ground. The trees around them were tall and twisted, their glowing leaves swaying in the wind like quiet whispers. Darren followed slowly, limping, using a stick to help himself walk. He had so many questions. Who was this alien woman? Why had she asked if he came to eat her? What kind of world was this? Lyrian didn't speak for a while. She was still thinking about the stories she had heard since she was a child. Stories about humans, creatures from the stars who arrived with fire and metal, taking whatever they wanted, leaving only dust behind. Her people called them sky-takers. But the human behind her didn't seem dangerous. He looked tired, hurt, and when he smiled earlier, it was not a cruel smile. It was soft, even a little thankful. That confused her. Finally, Darren broke the silence. "So, what's your name?" he asked. She didn't turn around. "Lyrian." "I'm Darren. Darren Cole," he said, trying to sound friendly. They walked through a narrow path between thick tree trunks. Small glowing insects floated by like tiny lights. Darren looked around in amazement. "This place is beautiful." Lyrian finally looked at him. "You think so?" "Yeah," he said with a small laugh. "Even with a busted leg, I can still tell beauty when I see it." Lyrian's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes softened. After a few minutes, they arrived at a small hidden stream. The water was clear and cold, flowing over smooth stones. On the bank was a hollow tree trunk, covered by thick vines. Lyrian pulled them aside and pointed inside. "You stay here," she said. "Safe." Darren crawled into the hollow carefully. It was small but dry and cool. Better than the open wreck. Lyrian left and came back soon with water in a leaf cup. She gave it to him. He drank slowly, then smiled. "Thank you." She sat a short distance away, still watching him. "You don't trust me," Darren said. "No," she replied honestly. "You're kind. Long ago, they came here. It is told to us, humans came in fire ships. They brought ruin, took our sky ore, left sickness. My people fear your return." Darren listened quietly. Then he nodded. "I believe you. I've read some stories from old records. Humans did a lot of bad things in the past. Not just here, on many planets." "You are not the same?" she asked. "No," Darren said softly. "I'm not a soldier. I'm not here to take anything. I'm just an explorer, a researcher. I study worlds, learn about them. But this crash wasn't part of the plan." Lyrian looked down. Her fingers touched the soft moss beside her. Her heart felt unsure. She had always believed the old stories. But now, a human was right in front of her, wounded and peaceful. "Why do you want to study other worlds?" she asked. Darren smiled. "Because I think every world has something special to teach us. Something different. Something beautiful. Even the quiet things, like your trees, or your voice." She blinked, surprised. "My voice. It's kind. Like a song," he said honestly. Lyrian turned her face slightly away. She wasn't used to compliments, especially not from a human. They sat in silence again. Birds with crystal wings flew above. A gentle wind moved the leaves. After a while, Darren asked, "Your people, do they live nearby?" Lyrian nodded. "Yes, but they must not see you. They will think you are a danger, even if I'm not. They will not ask questions," she said. "They fear what they do not understand." Darren understood that too well. He had seen fear like that on many planets, sometimes even on Earth. He looked at her with care. "Thank you for not turning me in." "I don't know why I didn't," she whispered. "Maybe I wanted to see for myself, if the stories were wrong." Darren smiled. "I hope I can prove they are." That night, Lyrian brought him wild fruits and wrapped his injured leg with soft plant fiber. Her hands were careful, gentle. Darren watched her as she worked. She was different from any alien he had met before, curious, thoughtful, and surprisingly human in some ways. And though Lyrian still felt nervous, she began to wonder, what if he really wasn't here to harm us? What if he was the first human who came in peace? As stars filled the sky, both of them sat by the stream in silence, two strangers from different worlds, slowly beginning to understand each other. The next morning, soft light filtered through the trees. Birds with bright feathers flew between the branches. A gentle breeze carried the scent of flowers. Darren woke slowly inside the hollow tree, his body aching but a little better than before. Lyrian was already awake. She sat near the stream, her legs crossed, eyes closed, breathing quietly. She looked peaceful, like she belonged to the forest. Darren watched her for a moment, surprised by how calm she was. The day before, she thought he might be a danger. Now she was helping him. He sat up with a groan. His leg was still painful, but the wrapping she had made helped. When Lyrian heard him, she opened her eyes and turned her head. "You are awake." "Yeah," he said, rubbing his neck. "Thanks to you." She stood and walked over with more fruit and a cup of clean water. "Eat. You need strength." Darren smiled. "You're starting to sound like my ship's medical eye." Lyrian raised one eyebrow. "What is an A?" "Ah, it's like a helper. A machine that talks and gives advice," he explained. She looked curious but didn't ask more. She sat down beside him as he ate, still quiet. After a while, Darren looked at her and asked, "Where do you live, Lyrian?" She pointed toward the hills in the distance. "There. Our village is hidden inside the cliffs." "Can I go there?" he asked. She shook her head quickly. "No, they would not accept you. They think all humans are dangerous." Darren looked down. "That's sad. I don't want to hide forever." "I know," she said softly. "But if they find you, they will hurt you, or worse." Darren thought for a moment. "Then I need a place where I can rest and stay safe until I figure out how to contact my team." Lyrian looked around. Then she nodded slowly. "There is one place." He followed her again, moving slowly with his stick. They walked deeper into the forest. After half an hour, they reached a narrow path between rocks. The air here felt cooler. The trees were older, taller. A strong scent of earth filled the area. At the end of the path stood a cave entrance, hidden by vines and moss. "This place is forbidden," Lyrian said quietly. "My people do not come here anymore. They fear it." "Why?" "It is old," she said. "Ancient, from the time before the Sky War. Elders say spirits live here, but I do not believe in such." Darren looked at the dark cave. "Looks safe enough to me." They stepped inside. The air was cool and dry. Strange symbols were carved into the stone walls. The ground was smooth, and the cave opened into a large chamber with a cracked stone floor. There were signs that someone, long ago, had lived here. Old furniture made from carved stone, and empty torch holders along the walls. Darren ran his fingers over the carvings. "This is amazing. It's like your people had advanced buildings before." Lyrian nodded. "Yes, long ago, we were space travelers. But something happened. Something bad. We lost our technology. Now we live simple lives, far from machines." Darren felt a deep sadness. "I wish I could learn more about your past. Maybe it could help my people understand yours better." She walked over to a wall that had a faded mural. It showed tall blue-skinned people, like Lyrian, standing beside beings that looked very human. Darren blinked. That's us. That's humans." Lyrian looked surprised. "What?" He pointed. "Look at them. That's not just art. That's history. Your people knew humans before." She stared at the mural for a long time. Her voice was barely a whisper. "But the elders said we were attacked, that we were hurt." "Maybe," Darren said. "But maybe the truth is more complicated." The two of them sat down in the center of the chamber. The silence was thick, filled with old memories hiding in the stone walls. "Why are you helping me?" Darren asked suddenly. Darren gave a small smile. "Maybe we can write a better story together." Outside the cave, however, trouble was growing. One morning, while collecting water, Lyrian heard a strange humming in the air. She froze, her sharp ears catching the sound of a drone, a small flying machine used by her village to search the forest for danger. The drones weren't common. They were only sent out when the elders felt something was wrong. She hid behind a tree and watched as the silver drone passed slowly overhead. It scanned the area with a soft green light. Her heart beat faster. They are searching for something, or someone. When the drone moved away, she ran back to the cave and found Darren sitting with his datapad, trying to repair it with wire and bits from his broken suit. "They sent a scout," she said quickly. "A drone." Darren looked up. "Looking for me?" She nodded. "Maybe. Maybe they saw your ship crash. Maybe they saw our tracks." He stood up slowly, pain flashing through his leg. "What should I do? Should I hide deeper?" "This cave is already deep," she said, thinking fast. "But we must be careful. If they come closer, they will know someone is here." Darren looked serious now. "I don't want to bring danger to you." "You didn't," she replied. "The danger was already here. We just woke it up." That night, they kept the fire small. No smoke, no light. Lyrian left earlier than usual, her steps quiet in the dark. In her village, things were tense. The elders sat in a circle around the sacred flame. They spoke in low voices about strange signs in the forest. Burnt trees, footprints that didn't match any local species, and strange energy readings near the ancient cave. One elder, a sharp-eyed woman named Terrell, stood. "We all know what this means. A human has come, and he must be removed before he brings ruin." Another elder hesitated. "What if it is not like before?" Terrell narrowed her eyes. "Do you wish to risk the safety of our people?" "No. We must act." The next morning, Lyrian returned to the cave with worry in her heart. "They're planning something," she told Darren. "They're afraid. They want to remove you." Darren sighed. "I figured they would, but I'm not leaving. Not yet. I still need to heal. And I want to help you understand what really happened between our people." She sat beside him, nervous. "Then we must be faster than them. There's something I want to show you, a place my mother once told me about. She said it holds old truths." "What kind of truths?" he asked. Lyrian looked him in the eyes. "The kind that can change everything." That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and stars began to shine, Lyrian and Darren prepared to travel. The cave had been a safe place, but it was no longer hidden from the world. The watchers were closing in. Still, neither of them felt afraid. Together, they were searching not just for safety, but for answers, and what they would find next would challenge the stories of both their worlds. The sky was still dark when Lyrian and Darren left the cave. The stars above were brighter than usual, and the moon cast silver light over the quiet forest. They moved carefully, avoiding open spaces, stepping between thick roots and glowing plants. Darren leaned on his walking stick. His leg was healing, but he still moved slowly. Lyrian stayed close beside him, helping when the path became rough. "Where are we going?" Darren asked, breathing a little heavily. "To the old sanctuary," Lyrian replied. "It's hidden deep in the forest, far from the village. My mother told me about it before she passed away. She said it holds memories from before the Sky War." Darren looked curious. "You think we'll find proof there, that humans and your people were once allies?" Lyrian nodded. "Maybe. If we do, it could change the way my people think. They fear you now, but the truth might show them something different." They moved on, the forest growing denser. Strange sounds echoed around them. Soft clicks, distant howls, and the fluttering of crystal-winged birds. Still, they pressed forward. Behind them, trouble was growing. Back in the village, Elder Terrell had sent 2 scouts toward the ancient cave. The drone had returned blurry images, shapes, heat signatures, signs of life. That was enough. Terrell ordered the scouts to investigate and capture whatever they found. "Bring the outsider alive if possible," she said. "But if he resists, do what must be done." The scouts, both tall and fast, set out with quiet footsteps and sharp tools. They followed the hidden paths, moving like shadows between trees. Meanwhile, Lyrian and Darren reached a ridge overlooking a deep valley. Below, the forest opened into a small clearing where old stone ruins stood. Time and weather had worn them down, but the shapes were still clear: pillars, arches, and carved walls. Moonlight shone on a circular platform at the center. "This is it," Lyrian said softly. They climbed down carefully. The air felt cooler here, and the ground was covered in soft moss. Darren looked around with wide eyes. "It's beautiful and ancient." They stepped onto the stone platform. In the middle stood a large pillar with faded carvings. Darren touched it gently. Then something strange happened. The pillar glowed faintly under his hand. A soft hum filled the air. Light spread across the carvings, forming lines and shapes. Symbols appeared, some in Lyrian's language, and others in old human script. Lyrian gasped, "It's responding to you." Darren stepped back. "I didn't do anything." The pillar began to play a holographic image. It showed two figures, one like Lyrian and one clearly human, standing side by side, shaking hands. Then it showed scenes of shared learning, building, and peace between their worlds. Lyrian stared at the vision with wide eyes. "It's true. We were allies." Darren nodded slowly. Someone wanted this to be remembered. But their moment of discovery didn't last long. A sudden sound, footsteps, broke the silence. From the trees, the two scouts appeared, weapons drawn. Their eyes locked on Darren. "There he is," one shouted. Lyrian stepped in front of Darren, her arms out. "Stop. You don't understand." The lead scout narrowed his eyes. "Lyrian, you helped the human." "I've seen the truth," she said firmly. "He's not our enemy. Look." She pointed to the glowing pillar and the still floating image of peace. The scouts hesitated. One of them looked unsure, but the other raised his weapon. "That changes nothing. He is a risk." "No," Lyrian shouted. "You're wrong." In that moment, Darren did something unexpected. He stepped forward, despite his injury. "I'm not here to fight," he said clearly. "I'm not here to take anything. But I won't run either. If you want to take me, fine. But at least look at what's in front of you. Look at the truth." The scouts stared at him, the glow of the ancient images reflected in their eyes. For a long moment, no one moved. Then the scout who had hesitated lowered his weapon. "This place, these signs, maybe we don't know everything." The other scout looked confused. "We should report this." Lyrian stepped closer. "Please, give us time. Let us show the elders what we found." The scouts exchanged a look. Then, slowly, they stepped back. "You have one day," the second scout said. "Then we return." Lyrian nodded. "Thank you." As the scouts disappeared into the forest, Darren let out a deep breath. That was close. Lyrian turned to him with a small smile. "You were brave." He smiled back. "You stood in front of me first." Together, they looked once more at the glowing pillar, the memory of a lost friendship now reborn. The next morning, Lyrian and Darren made their way back to the hidden cave where they had first found shelter. The ancient stone platform with its glowing symbols was still fresh in their minds. Both felt a sense of urgency. The scouts would return soon, and the elders of Lyrian's village would need to see the truth of what they had discovered. As they walked through the dense forest, the weight of the situation was heavy in the air. Lyrian had seen her people's fear of the human race, and now, for the first time, she wondered if it was fear based on lies. The old stories had been wrong. Darren was not a destroyer. He was a peaceful soul, just like her people had once been before the Sky War. Darren glanced at her, sensing the shift in her mood. "Are you okay?" Lyrian nodded but didn't say anything right away. She was thinking about her people, the elders, and what they would do when they saw the pillar's images. Could they really change their minds about humans after so many years of fear and hatred? "I'm just thinking," she said after a moment, "about my people. What will they say when we show them the truth?" Darren didn't answer immediately, but his voice was steady when he spoke. "The truth is powerful, Lyrian. It's the only thing that can help change anything. I know they've been told you can't trust humans, but they're wrong. The past can't be erased, but it can be understood." They reached the cave just as the sun was beginning to set. The shadows in the forest grew longer, and the stars started to twinkle in the sky. It was time to wait for the scouts. They had promised to give Lyrian and Darren a day to present what they had found. The tension was thick, but Darren knew that no matter what happened next, they were on the edge of something important. Lyrian went to gather supplies from the small shells she had hidden away in the cave. She picked up some dried fruit and a few strips of plant fiber for Darren's leg. She had learned to care for him during their time together. But in her heart, she knew this was more than just caring for a wounded traveler. It was about trust. She trusted him. And maybe, just maybe, her people could learn to trust him too. As Lyrian worked, Darren couldn't help but think about his own home. Earth. His crew was still out there somewhere, waiting for him to send a signal. He had come here to explore and learn, never expecting to get caught in the middle of a conflict between two worlds. Yet here he was, about to reveal a truth that could change everything for Lyrian's people. The evening passed slowly. The forest around them was alive with the sounds of nocturnal creatures. Occasionally, Lyrian would pause, listening to the distant hum of the wind or the rustle of the leaves. Both of them were waiting for the scouts to return and for the truth to be revealed. Finally, around midnight, the scouts arrived. They didn't come alone. The leaders of the village were with them, Elder Terrell and several other high-ranking officials. Their expressions were stern, their eyes searching. Lyrian stood up, her back straight, and walked toward them, Darren by her side. The scouts exchanged nervous glances, unsure of what to expect. "You found something?" Terrell asked, her voice sharp. Her gaze was fixed on Darren. "Something that will change everything." Lyrian nodded. "Yes, Elder Terrell. We found proof. Proof that humans and our people were once allies." Terrell raised an eyebrow. "Proof? What kind of proof?" Lyrian motioned for Darren to step forward. "Show them." Darren stepped closer to the center of the cave, where the ancient relics from the past were still shining faintly. He had learned the old symbols from the pillar, and now he knew how to make it work. With a simple touch of his hand, the pillar began to glow again. The images appeared, human figures standing beside Lyrian's ancestors, peaceful exchanges, and shared moments of learning. The truth of the alliance between the two species was now visible for all to see. The elders gasped in unison, their faces showing disbelief. They had never seen anything like this before. "Is this real?" one of the other elders asked, his voice trembling slightly. "Yes," Darren said softly. "This is the truth. Your people and humans were once friends, allies working together to build something greater. The stories you've been told, they were wrong." Terrell stared at the images for a long time, her hands clenched at her sides. "But why was this hidden?" "That's the question," Lyrian said. "Why were we told that humans were enemies? Why were we made to fear them?" The silence in the cave was thick. The elders looked at each other, unsure of how to respond. Terrell finally spoke, her voice softer now. "We have feared the humans for so long. We believed the stories. But this changes everything." Darren stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "We're not here to bring harm. We're here to learn, to understand, and to rebuild. If your people will allow it, we can work together again." Lyrian watched her elders, waiting for their response. She had risked everything, her people's trust, her place in her society. just to show them the truth. Terrell sighed deeply, her gaze softening. Perhaps it is time to stop fearing what we do not understand. For the first time in a long time, hope filled the cave. The next few days passed quickly. What had begun as a moment of uncertainty, with fear and distrust, was now transforming into something entirely different. The elders of Lyrian's people had agreed to listen, and Darren had shown them the truth. For the first time in generations, the walls of fear between their worlds were starting to crack. Lyrian had become a symbol of this change. Her courage to trust Darren had sparked a shift in the minds of many. The once unshakable beliefs about humans, that they were invaders, destroyers, were now being questioned. As for Darren, he was still in awe of the beauty and complexity of the alien world he had found himself on. But he wasn't just an explorer anymore. He wasn't just studying the ruins or learning about new cultures. He was now part of something bigger, something that had the potential to change the course of history. One evening, after another long day of talks and discussions with the elders, Lyrian and Darren sat at the edge of the forest, watching the sun set. The sky was painted in shades of purple and gold, and the air smelled fresh, filled with the scent of flowers and the faint trace of damp earth. Lyrian spoke first, her voice quiet. "I never imagined things would change this quickly." Darren looked at her and smiled. "I didn't either, but when people see the truth, they can't ignore it." She nodded, but there was a thoughtful look in her eyes. "The elders, they still have so many questions, but I think they are beginning to see that we were wrong about you." "I think so too," Darren said. "But this isn't just about proving something to them. It's about showing them that we can work together again, that we're not so different." Lyrian turned to him, her pale violet eyes catching the last light of the setting sun. "Do you really believe that? That we can rebuild what was lost?" Darren thought for a moment before answering. "Yes, I think we can. Maybe not all at once, but little by little. The past can't be changed, but we can build a better future, together." Lyrian smiled softly. She had always believed in peace, in understanding, but she had never imagined it could be possible with humans. But now, looking at Darren, she saw something different in him. Something that wasn't just about survival or exploration. It was about connection. "Thank you," she said quietly. Darren raised an eyebrow. "For what?" "For showing me that there is more to humans than what I was taught. You've changed my mind. And maybe, just maybe, you can help change my people's minds too." Darren looked at her seriously. "I'm not doing this for you to change your mind, Lyrian. I'm doing this because I believe in the possibility of what we can create together. I'm doing this because I see the good in you and your people. I know we can do something great." For a moment, neither of them spoke. They sat in silence, watching the sky as the stars began to twinkle above. It was a peaceful silence, the kind that comes when two people truly understand each other. The world around them seemed to breathe with the rhythm of the forest. Finally, Lyrian broke the silence again. "So, what happens now?" "Well," Darren said, his voice full of quiet hope, "I think we go back to the village. We'll show them what we've discovered, and we'll work from there. But it's not just about showing them the truth of the past. It's about helping them see the potential for the future." Lyrian nodded, her gaze steady. "We'll need to be careful. The elders may agree, but some of the younger ones might still fear humans." Darren smiled. "That's true. It won't be easy. But I think the more they see, the more they'll understand." They stood up together, ready to return to the village. As they walked side by side through the forest, there was a new sense of unity between them. It wasn't just the bond of mutual respect anymore. It was something deeper, something unspoken, a shared dream of a future where two worlds could come together. When they reached the village, the elders were waiting for them. There were still some tense faces, but the majority of the people were eager to hear more. The pillar of truth, the glowing relic, was placed in the center of the village, where everyone could see it. The images it projected once again showed the history of peace and cooperation between humans and Lyrian's people. This, Darren said, is the past we can learn from, but we have to make our own future, together. Lyrian stood beside him, her hand lightly resting on his arm. She had never felt so sure of anything in her life. We have much to offer each other. The knowledge, the technology, the wisdom. Together, we can build something greater. The crowd fell silent, and then slowly people began to nod. The fear that had once gripped them was starting to loosen. The fear of the unknown was being replaced with the hope of what could be. It wasn't the end of the journey. It wasn't a sudden, perfect solution. But it was a beginning of something new, something filled with promise. And that was all either of them could ask for.